Welcome friends to another Dune video. Today we examine the Great Convention, an agreement that has created long peace in the Imperium. Leto says the forms must be obeyed. What are these forms and how are they linked to family atomics and Canley? Spoilers for the Dune Encyclopedia throughout. Let's get straight into it. The Great Convention is a legal code. This treaty serves as the highest law in the Imperium. The creation of the Great Convention moved through several stages: the study of existing laws, a draft of proposals, and 7 years later it was made. Time was then spent bringing these codes to new worlds, to bind them into the bedrock of the Imperium. The final document covered 5 volumes, and mastered the art of careful wording. The intention of the convention was to control but not limit people. Every section starts with "the forms must be obeyed." One of the most important parts is it covers the use of prohibiting atomic weapons being used against human beings. The details cover acceptable ways of getting these weapons, for storing them, and how to rig them to fire against another house automatically should the holder of the atomics be attacked. These limits protect people on the surface from a slow death and the contamination of wild and plant life that can leave a long scar on a planet. This could have been forced through a total ban, but the truth is the houses within the Imperium did not want to give up their atomics. As the Dune Encyclopedia tells us, they simply wished to be certain that no less powerful house could overcome one of its betters by use of atomic power alone. The same attitude enabled the great houses to wink at the existence of stone burners, weapons which clearly violated the spirit, if not the all-important letter of the law. So the houses cannot fight by atomics, so what is acceptable within the Imperium? Open warfare, too, was discouraged due to how destructive it was, hurting not only the populace of planets, but the economy too. The Civil War was a war of assassins, an exact number of professional killers sent to murder by stealth. This, once started, can only be stopped by complete surrender, where the defeated nobles lived but lose all holdings and titles, or the literal extermination of their house. The assassins could only kill approved targets, and a judge of change would be appointed by the authority of the Landsraad and the Emperor. For a more personal fight, you'd invoke Canley or Vendetta. An appointed judge would be picked with rigid rules about procedures to follow, and weapons to be chosen would then be set out. Here the heads of houses would fight in a personal setting, thus protecting the rest of the populace. Clauses stop members of a house killing each other for gaining in rank, thus the class system was preserved. Only under rare circumstances would a minor house gain the place of a major house, or someone rise above the class into which they were born, though you did have the option of marrying upwards. With Canley, a judge would be appointed and oversee negotiations between the families. If neither house wanted to consider another way, then, as the Dune Encyclopedia says, their negotiation consisted of a personal combat with knives only, unshielded to the death. Even the combat was stylized, with certain phrases being employed on each side to call the other out. When one or both of the combatants had died, the option of either withdrawing the Canley or reopening negotiations was left to the heirs. In a deeply bitter vendetta, all possible heirs to a line can be wiped out. Here the judge of right would give those that remained better imperial protection, and the assets redistributed among them. The victorious house would get a small portion of those assets. A lot did go to the crown, where it would be marked for the support of the losing house, or if combat was not wanted, a vendetta could be settled by the challenged house meeting certain agreements, such as the transfer of a fief along with large parts of their chome holdings and other variables. Class mobility was given to those who could not fight great success in business, war, or politics. One person would need the backing of the Emperor to be elevated, and both him and the Landsraad for a house on purpose. The convention made this advancement hard but not impossible. Other parts looked at the edicts coming out of the Jihad. The famous quote, "You shall not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind." The Ixians and the Tleilaxu work at the edges of this, but the convention does not prevent them. The Houses want advanced technology for the same reasons. They wanted to keep the atomics protecting their position. The Dune Encyclopedia lays out more of what the Great Convention covers. Many other areas were also carefully drawn out. Regulations dealing with kidnapping and ransoms, scaled according to the ranks of the hostage and the kidnapper, permissible levels of import and export, the procedures followed when a thief was transferred from one house to another. No matter of consequence in the eyes of the delegates was neglected. There was even a clause, admittedly a brief one, which gave instructions for the proper ranking of concubines within a nobleman's house. The convention was by far the most comprehensive body of laws in a single document ever written. You can see how far the Great Convention stretches, and with only minor changes, it remained in effect for millennia. To flout the rules, the house would be declared outlaw, stripped of its holdings, and those from that house would not be able to book passage on a guild ship and essentially be left stranded on their planet. Or when a great house completely breaks the convention, the house was destroyed. Now, friends, I turn this over to you. What do you think to these forms that must be obeyed? Do the rules on atomics make sense? Have you declared candidly against another great house? Comment down below.